There are moments in history when the world itself seems to hold its breath. Long before electricity, before heated shelters, before insulated boots or weather forecasts, people lived at the mercy of the seasons. And of all seasons, winter was the one that walked closest to every door. It crept across the land not with a roar but with a whisper, sliding across rooftops, slipping through cracks, dimming fires, and reminding every living soul that warmth is never guaranteed. Tonight, I want to take you on a journey into one such winter, a winter buried in the medieval past, when a small village braced itself against cold so deep it seemed to rise from the earth as much as fall from the sky. This is not a tale of knights or castles or royal feasts. No. This is the story of ordinary people, farmers, shepherds, children, elders, those who did not get written into the grand chronicles yet shaped history simply by surviving it. Imagine a village at the edge of a forest, surrounded by fields now stiff with frost. Imagine smoke curling from low chimneys, blending into a sky so pale it almost seems drained of color. Imagine the sound of distant chopping, the rhythm of one family preparing for the cold while another rushes to catch up. And imagine the feeling, a quiet, widening certainty that winter is coming faster than anyone hoped. For the next 30 minutes, allow yourself to step into a different time. A time lit by firelight, wrapped in wool, where life slowed down to the pace of survival instinct and shared stories. A time when warmth was a treasure, food an act of faith, and community the strongest shield against the cold. So settle in, relax, and let the story unfold. The cold arrived before the snow. For 3 days, a wind slid through the village like a warning. Leaves shook loose from the last stubborn branches. The sky, the villagers would later recall, looked like old parchment, thin and ready to tear. Animals grew restless. Even the goats refused to wander far from the fence. Children noticed, too, though they did not fully understand. They only knew the air tasted different, sharper, almost metallic. Inside the cottage at the edge of the village lived a family of 5, Edda, the mother, Halvar, the father, their 2 sons, Len and Bram, and Halvar's aging mother, who everyone simply called Nanny. They were not wealthy. Most were not. But they had something more valuable: experience. They had lived through winters before. Though none knew this winter would test them in ways they had not imagined. Halvar spent the final days, before the snowfall, patching the roof with bundles of straw soaked in resin. The woodpile behind the house was tall but not tall enough. It never was. Edda mended clothes beside the fire, sewing wool patches over worn elbows and knees, knowing each stitch might be the difference between warmth and a shiver that lasted hours. In the evenings, the family gathered to eat pottage, a thick mix of grain, dried peas, and whatever vegetables still remained from autumn's harvest. It was not delicious, but it filled their stomachs, and that was what mattered. As they ate, Nanny told stories, as she always did when the fire burned low. Stories of winters before, winters long forgotten by everyone except her. Winters where snow buried fences, where rivers froze so completely you could walk across them like solid earth, where even the wolves sought shelter closer to people. Children leaned closer when she spoke. Adults exchanged glances. How much was story, and how much was memory? In the medieval world, the line was never clear. Still, one thing was certain: winter was coming fast. It began at dawn. Len was the first to see it, pushing aside the shutter to check the morning light. Instead, he saw thick flakes drifting slowly from the sky, soft and silent. It looked peaceful at first, beautiful, even. But Halvar knew better. Snow this early means the cold will stay, he murmured. The village shifted into another rhythm entirely. No more last-minute repairs. No more wishful thinking. It was time for rationing. Time for careful planning. Time for accepting that, for months, life would shrink to the size of each cottage. Snow fell for 2 days straight. Paths disappeared. Fields vanished beneath a white blanket. Woodpiles grew smaller faster than anyone liked. Inside the cottage, the family rearranged their world. Animals, 2 goats and 3 chickens were brought into the barn, directly connected to the main home to share warmth. A thin wall separated humans and livestock, but heat seeped through, making the nights a little more bearable. The fire burned constantly, though never at full strength. Halvar taught the boys how to bank embers, covering them with ash at night so the fire never fully died. Restarting a fire from scratch was dangerous. On the coldest mornings, fingers stiffened too quickly to strike flint properly. Edda baked coarse rye bread every 3 days. It was dense, heavy, and sometimes carried the faint bitterness of ergot, the fungus that grew easily on stored grain in damp winters. No one mentioned it. Bread was bread. And outside, the snow kept falling. After a week, the world beyond the cottage felt like another planet. The snowdrifts climbed to the windows. The path to the well had to be dug every morning, only to disappear again by afternoon. Even the sound of the wind changed thicker, more muffled, as if the village were sinking into a cold, white sea. Inside, routines became ritual. Morning. Rekindle the fire, check the animals, melt snow for water. Midday, repair clothes, turn compost, stir the pottage. Night, gather close, save heat, share stories, rest early. The smoke inside the home became its own companion. Even with a chimney, medieval houses filled with haze each time the wind shifted. Eyes stung. Coughs grew common. But warmth mattered more. Len and Bram, restless, played with wooden figures Halvar carved for them. Sometimes they pressed their hands against the walls and felt the winter trying to seep in. Edda scolded them for wasting heat, but secretly she understood. The cold made everything mysterious. It made the world feel larger and smaller at the same time. One night, Nanny told a story the children had not heard before, a story of a winter so fierce it turned breath into frost that clung to eyelashes, a winter where people survived because they shared what little they had. Cold, she said softly, is not conquered by fire alone. It is conquered by people choosing to stay together. Her words settled over the room like a second blanket. By midwinter, autumn supplies thinned dangerously. The family still had grain, but less than they hoped. Salted meat was nearly gone. Even the goats produced less milk, drinking more water to stay warm. Other families suffered too. Some shared what they had. Others hoarded quietly. Hunger changes people. Cold changes them more. Every day became a balance between fear and determination. Pottage grew thinner. Bread became slices instead of hunks. The fire stayed smaller, even on nights when frost painted the walls inside the cottage. And yet, even in the hardest weeks, life continued. Children laughed at the way snowflakes melted on their tongues when they opened the door. Halvar hummed old melodies while chopping precious wood. Edda warmed stones at the fire and wrapped them in cloth to place at the foot of the bed so their toes would not ache. Acts of love in a time of scarcity carry a special kind of strength. But winter still had more to test. Every winter has a night that feels longer than all the rest. For this village, it came in late January, during a windstorm so cold even the animals fell silent. Snow slammed against the cottage walls. The fire pulsed weakly, struggling against drafts. The family huddled together under blankets, listening to the timbers groan. Stories, Bram whispered. Tell us stories. So they told them. All night long. Stories of spring. Stories of planting. Stories of better winters. Stories where the cold did not always win. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, a different warmth held steady, not from the fire alone, but from voices refusing to let the dark swallow them. Hours later, when the wind finally faded, dawn arrived quietly, almost shyly. The world outside was unrecognizable white hills where fences once stood, thick frost clinging to the barn door, the well completely buried. Halvar stepped outside and exhaled slowly. "This," he said, "is the beginning of the end. We have passed the worst." They did not know it yet. But he was right. February sunlight is not warm, but it is hopeful. Bit by bit, snow slid from rooftops. Ice cracked on the well. Goats bleated with more energy. The fire did not seem to consume wood as greedily. Children played outside again, building snow figures that leaned in crooked charm. Food was still scarce, but the cold loosened its grip. Nights remained frigid, but days grew friendlier. And in the quiet moments, the village began to breathe again. One morning, Len spotted the first patch of dark earth where the snow had melted near the wall. He called everyone over as if he would discover treasure. And in a way, he had. Spring was not here yet, but it was coming. Weeks later, a bird sang. Just one, at first a thin, gentle sound from a nearby branch. The village paused as if listening to an oracle. After months of winter's silence, it felt like the world remembering itself. People emerged from their homes more often. Paths were cleared. Tools prepared. Food shared more freely again, though still carefully. The sun rose earlier each day. Nanny, watching the children chase each other through slush, smiled softly. "Winter teaches us," she said, "but spring reminds us why we endure." By the time snow melted fully, the village had changed. Everyone had. The cold had stripped life down to essentials: warmth, food, companionship, resilience. And yet, there was beauty in the simplicity, strength in the struggle, unity in the shared hardship. Fields softened. The soil turned workable. The scent of thawed earth filled the air like a promise. Families planted seeds with hands still stiff from winter but hopeful all the same. Life did not return to normal. It returned to renewed. And for Halvar, Edda, their children, and everyone in their small village, that winter became a story, one they would tell for years, to remind themselves that even in the most difficult seasons, warmth can always be found. Sometimes in fire. Sometimes in food. And always in each other. As our journey comes to a close, I hope this story brought you warmth, comfort, and a quiet appreciation for the resilience of ordinary people throughout history. Their lives were not easy, but they found light in small moments, strength in community, and hope in every sunrise. If you enjoyed this long-form story and want more immersive journeys into the past, do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps this channel grow and allows more stories like this to come to life. Thank you for spending your time here. Good night.